Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Aether Hub. I'm Simon, bringing you another Magic the Gathering video. Kaldheim lore season marches forward with Chapter 2 of the set's official story, and it's following our initial look at the plane in our Chapter 1 recap, which you can find linked in the description below if you haven't already seen it. I really highly recommend going back and giving it a watch so you aren't completely confused as we're going throughout the story. What we know so far is that Kaya, the ghost assassin and newest member of the Gatewatch, has been hired on by some mysterious multiversal client to handle a little monster problem on the world of Kaldheim. Kaya has accepted that job, but had no clue that the monster she now hunts is actually a praetor of the Phyrexians, Vorinclex. How this powerful enemy got from New Phyrexia to Kaldheim remains unknown. It's still a big mystery of the story, but Kaya, as well as the gods of Kaldheim, seem to understand that this threat comes from outside of this plane. Kaya is now teaming up with Kaldheim's gods to get to the bottom of this threat and to prevent the Doomskar, a cataclysmic event that would destroy the entire plane. She seeks passage between the realms of this world via a mysterious and apparently pretty picky ship that can help her track down Vorinclex. And that's where we are right now, heading into Chapter 2, Awaken the Trolls. Before we get into the video, I just want to thank all my supporters over on Patreon. If you enjoy the content, make sure you like, subscribe, and tick that notification bell, but also consider supporting us over on Patreon, where you gain access to perks like these videos early, monthly signed cards, and your name at the end of my videos via the credits. Check out all of those in the link in the description below. And now, let's get back to the lore. Kaya was still a little bewildered at how she stumbled into this situation of her own making. It was a simple job, kill a monster, get some coin. But now it's devolved into a realm-jumping conundrum with multiversal monsters and gods. Certainly not as simple as she'd hoped. Now, she rests on a magical longboat, Kazuma, that the god Aldrun had said would take her exactly where she needed to go. Gods and their riddles, she lamented. And this ship wasn't even comfortable. You'd think a ship used by the gods to travel different realms would at least have pillows. But this was just Kaya's luck on this particular mission. Kaya had discovered that the plane of Kaldheim was unique, that its 10 realms were just as loosely connected as the planes in the multi-self were. They were tied to one another, but you cannot easily travel between them. Even Kaya, being a planeswalker, could not effectively leave Kaldheim and planeswalk to the realm of her choice. It made traveling tricky, though she didn't expect that she needed to go to different realms on this mission. Kaya's previous companion, Inga Runeeyes, had told her of the paths between the realms, known as omen paths, which are certainly rare and unreliable. However, another method to bridge the realms, known as Doomskars, were far more feared. The Doomskars act not so much as bridges, but collisions, as one realm smashes into another with catastrophic effects. Aldrun had said he saw visions of a Doomskar coming. Kaya wasn't thrilled about that, but if she could help by taking out this monster, whatever it was, then she would do her part. She was, after all, a hero. As she contemplated her life choices, Kaya feels a sudden jolt forward as the ship carrying her through the cosmos found solid land. Her stop, apparently, though she had no clue where she had landed. It was a darker realm, with a deep tar-colored mud lining the shore and thick, hanging foliage. This place seemed wild, as if buildings just didn't exist in this realm, as if nature itself ruled with an oaken fist. Kaya didn't quite understand nature or quiet. Coming from one who typically fights the shockingly noisy dead, the sereneness of Kaldheim is what gave her the most pause. Still, the magic boat told her that this is where she needed to kill the monster, so she braved forward, looking up and down for the sheen of metal which happened to be this creature's calling card. As she traversed the wilds, Kaya hears the chattering of voices through the trees, hopefully a group as helpful as the gods of this realm. Though she wasn't foolish enough to think that all of Kaldheim or its gods would be as hospitable, she approached with caution. As she drew closer, the voices became deeper, less intelligible, spoken in a language Kaya had no chance of deciphering. Creeping closer, she's hit with a pungent odor, like the smell of rotting wood in a dank swamp. Finally, she spots through the clearing trolls. That explains the smell at least. And if Kaya had to guess, if they were anything like trolls on other planes, they certainly wouldn't be any sort of help to her mission. She was ready to turn and walk away unnoticed, right as another figure captures her attention. This one, much less trolly, but just as curious. Was that Another god of Kaldheim? The cloaked figure introduced himself to the group of trolls, saying that he goes by many names in many realms. He's known as the Trickster, the Ruse Forger, the Prince of Mischief, and God of Lies. However, his true name is Volki, and he brings important news to these most noble of troll clans. Kaya hunkered down and watched as the god Volki went about his spiel, talking above the clatter of teeth and blunted clubs, speaking like a teacher to a group of children. Volki explains that great strife comes for the forests of Nadovold, that terrible and foul creatures will soon pour forth into their realm and put trollkind to the sword. These monsters must be met by the full power and might and cooperation of the various tribes, together, at full strength, if they wish to keep their forests untorched and their riches unplundered. That last bit about treasure really caught the troll's attention. Yep, thought Kaya, they were certainly like every troll she's ever met. Volki, in an antagonizing and very precise manner, was riling up the troll clans, encouraging them to violence. The God of Lies compelled the trolls to rise up, to attack first or risk oblivion. This garnered a roar from the trolls as he spoke in a language they understood, that being bloodshed and war. Kaya looked on with wonder. The gods of Kaldheim, to the best of her knowledge after talking with Alrun, seemed to want nothing more than to observe the realms and only interfere if a Doomskar was preventable. Coaxing trolls to attack another realm? That didn't seem in character with this particular pantheon. And what did the God of Lies hope to gain from a troll attack upon another realm? Something was amiss here, and Kaya spotted it. A glimmer, ever fleeting, catching the sun just enough for Kaya to pick up on it. Certainly the trolls or almost anyone else would have missed it, but Kaya has been dealing with spiritual magics all of her life. Enchantments and illusions were commonplace, and she could spot one from a mile off. This Volki certainly was lying after all. Kaya pulls forth some magic, crafts a spell, nothing fancy, just a little bit of wind, and blows a gust that peels the illusion right off the god's skin. What's left behind is a much less imposing figure, but curious all the same. It was a red humanoid with tiny horns protruding from his forehead, sharp claws and teeth, and Kaya suspected a sharp tongue as well. She had heard stories of a planeswalker with this description, and as she jumps out to confront him, Kaya introduces herself to Tibalt. Tibalt is taken aback. Someone here in Kaldheim knows him? They must be a planeswalker. But Tibalt didn't recognize Kaya. Proper introductions were in order. It was true they had never met before, but as they say, his reputation preceded him. Kaya had heard tales and stories of this half-devil by fellow planeswalkers while stuck on Ravnica. There was no mistaking who this particular planeswalker was. Kaya didn't know much about Tibalt other than where he goes, trouble typically follows. Whatever he was doing here on Kaldheim was surely no good. Kaya demands to know what he's doing on Kaldheim. Tibalt retorts with the same question. After all, aren't planeswalkers by their very nature just meddlers in other planes' affairs? He was simply doing his planeswalking duties, which she so rudely interrupted. As punishment, Tibalt reaches out and screams an order. Kill her! At first, Kaya thought that maybe the trolls had too seen through Tibalt's ruse. However, her expectation of trolls was a little unfounded. They believed him still to be a god and charged at her, hurling stone blocks and waving clubs made from tree trunks. As one crashes down on her an old war axe, wielding it with ease, Kaya turns herself incorporeal and lets the attack phase right through her. The troll's momentum carried them right into the root system of a tree, knocking them over, as a second troll thrusted a rusty spear right towards her. This time, she sidestepped, pushing the troll forward and making his body incorporeal, phasing him into the trunk of a tree. The troll re-emerged as nothing more than limbs fused with an oak. Kaya turns towards the others as if to say, who's next? With the trolls doing something smart for a change and stopping their attack on Kaya, she began to pursue the planeswalker Tibalt. While he did have a head start, Kaya's ability to phase through obstacles made her incredibly quick in this forest environment. Jumping through downed trees and hanging vines allowed Kaya to catch up and corner her target. Confronted, Tibalt is again pressed on why he's come to Kaldheim. The planeswalker doesn't give much away. He fears it's going to spoil the ending, but he does tell Kaya that mayhem and chaos are their own types of rewards, things Tibalt personally enjoys. There is no grand evil plot. This was pure pandemonium, plain and simple, and Tibalt was reveling in it. Kaya continued to press, unconvinced of Tibalt's desires, or at the very least, wary of his methods. This monster that she was hunting, the one with metal who was not of Kaldheim, did he have something to do with it? Did Tibalt bring that monster to Kaldheim to sow chaos? Tibalt scoffed, feigned some fright at the idea of a monster, but gave Kaya nothing more. Tibalt was playing games with her, but now he had nowhere else to run and no trolls left to fight for him. Kaya would get her answers one way or another. It was true, Kaya had proved worthy enough at dispatching the rabble of lesser trolls, but those were merely haggy trolls. Tibalt wanted to see if Kaya's swagger would hold up against trolls of the torga variety. With a shrill whistle, Tibalt smiled through sharpened teeth as the earth began to quake. Torga trolls are known to be very heavy sleepers, but if awakened, well, cranky is an understatement. Kaya watched in horror as entire mountainsides began to shift and lift from the surface. Old ruins of stone perched on the backs of what looked like giants took shape. These were the largest trolls Kaya had ever laid eyes on, easily 20 feet tall at least. But certainly, Tibalt had just signed his own death certificate. Surely the trolls would come for both of them. Tibalt, ever calculating if not chaotic, always has an out. Kaya watched as Tibalt draws a sword, one of gleaming beauty, a marvel. It was forged out of what looked like to be glass, and through it shined a light Kaya noticed as being similar to that of Alrund, the god who had helped her in the first encounter with the mysterious monster. Just like Alrund, this light was a catalyst for a portal. A hole had been torn in the earth, which Tibalt jumped into. The area shown on the other side, which Kaya was only able to see for but a moment, was a realm of fire and dark ash. But as quickly as it appeared, it closed, and Tibalt was again gone, leaving Kaya alone with a group of very angry trolls. At first, Kaya tried to reason with the trolls. If they could think, maybe she could talk her way out of this. However, a hulking monster with a house on his shoulder leaned forward, clubbing at Kaya with his 8-foot fist. Kaya would have been grounded into the dirt if she hadn't phased through it. Fine, she thought. If they want to fight, I'll give them a fight. She watched as another strike went right through her, as she phased back and plunged her ethereal dagger deep into the troll's arm. Or at least, she wanted to. The dagger would have had just as easy of a time delivering a blow to solid stone. Kaya could feel the blade snap in two, as the troll swung back and launched Kaya into the air and through a clearing. Kaya had lost the blade and her patience. As she charged at another troll, Kaya took a much more offensive approach, using her phasing ability to plunge through the troll's body and have only her dagger re-emerge embedded into the troll's spine. This tactic proved more useful. The troll screamed a loud bellow and crumpled to the floor, seemingly defeated. However, her plan had no exit strategy. The dagger was lost inside the body of the troll. Kaya now had no weapons, and still more trolls were coming. Basking, her glory lasted only a moment, as a sharp pain hit her from the side. The troll she had just downed was already back up and swung at her blind side. Kaya reels over in pain and bewilderment. Will anything take these guys down? Suddenly, a more intelligible voice echoes above her. Need a hand? Kaya looks up to see an elf standing perched on a tree branch looking down at the battle below. Kaya is a little unnerved. How long had he been watching her getting her ass kicked before he decided to lend her a hand? This elf was as cocky as one could get, marking how impressive it was that she had faced one torga troll, let alone 6, but also remarking at how, well, she wasn't faring too well. This really irked Kaya, who could tell the elf was young, but she had no perspective, as she also knew elves of other worlds aged far slower. Still, even if this elf was 200 years old, he carried with him the demeanor of a 12-year-old. Kaya offers the elf to escape. She could handle the trolls on her own, and she didn't want to see this kid get hurt. But deep down, even she knew that wasn't true. The elf picked up on that. She had no weapons, was already hurt, while he was still carrying a secret weapon. Kaya had noticed a blade attached to the elf's wrist guard. Surely that wasn't his so-called secret weapon, right? This kid was unbelievably confident. No, his secret weapon was in fact a rock. Nothing special, just a small stone he had tossed up into the air, only to catch again. A rock? Kaya thought with suspicion. Does this kid want to die? The elf jumped from the branch and strolled towards the trolls as if he didn't have a care in the world. As if a 6,000-pound hulking dimwit wasn't barreling down on him. Who was this guy? Kaya watched as this newcomer too was quick on his feet, dodging blows left and right from multiple enemies at once. But Kaya also noticed that even though the troll's blows were missing by merely inches, that this elf could have dodged them by feet. He was showing off. As another blow came and missed, Kaya saw as the elf transmuted his hand into what looked like stone, taking the properties of that little pebble he was holding earlier. With his stony grasp, the elf sent his magic, whatever it was, coursing through the body of the troll with a simple touch. The creeping spell was encasing the troll in stone, an inching plague that rendered their flesh into a solid prison. The trolls could only watch on in confusion as one after another succumbed to the mere touch of this elf. As the final troll howled in fear, its face becoming frozen for all time, the elf jumped back and approached Kaya, 6 new troll statues at his back, and a foolish smirk on his face. Finally, the elf introduces himself as Tyvar Kell, Prince of the Elves of Skemfar, greatest hero of all the realms. Truly, a humble one. He tells Kaya that he's been tracking Volki, trying to understand why the god of lies had come to their lands. Kaya lets him know that Volki was no god, but a being known as Tibalt, an agent of chaos who now, apparently, possessed the ability to travel between the realms. Trying to start a war. Tyvar's veil of confidence seemed to wane just a little bit at that news, as Volki, or at least Tibalt in the guise of a god, had visited his home kingdom and his brother, Harold, the king of the elves. The god told them of a coming war, and Harold, in his ignorance, summoned his forces as a precaution. Everyone was on the brink of uncertainty when Volki left. That's why Tyvar was out here tracking him, to get more information from the god. But it was now clear that something much more disturbing was taking place. Tibalt is the key to everything. He needs to be captured, but how do you track someone who can travel between the realms? From Kaya's description of the place he had jumped to, Tyvar figured it had to be Immersturm, the realm of demons, a dangerous place fraught with powerful foes. Whatever Tibalt does there would certainly prove disastrous. Still, the question remained, how are they to track him? Kaya no longer had a magic boat, and she had no means of contacting another god for help. Tyvar smiled. He raised his hands as swirls of mana began to coalesce. Just as Olrun had done back in the cave, a doorway opened to the great cosmos that connected the realms of Kaldheim. Kaya was shocked. Everyone here had told her how traversing the cosmos was nearly impossible, yet the gods, Tibalt, and now this elf all had that power. But Kaya sensed something different about Tyvar's magic. It seemed familiar. It was being shaped by the magic of Kaldheim, but at the base of it, it was a power that Kaya understood. Tyvar believed it to be nothing more than the ancient magics of his elvish kingdom that allowed him to traverse the realms, but Kaya knew this was something more than a mere spell. She looked down at his shirtless chest and saw a hanging charm. Tyvar pulled it forward and showed it to her. It was in a shape Kaya knew all too well, a hedron from Zendikar. Tyvar believed he had plucked it while visiting another realm of Kaldheim using his magic, but he didn't realize he wasn't on Kaldheim at all. He was a planeswalker and didn't even know it. And guys, that's it for chapter 2 of the official Kaldheim story. So let's go into my thoughts. Well, the story continues to be pretty good so far in terms of the writing. We're introduced to Tyvar Kell, who, as a twist, doesn't even realize that he's a planeswalker. I was actually reading this story for the first time live on stream with some of the fans of the channel, and this thought really jumped out at me first and foremost. The idea that because Kaldheim is a plane of fragmented realms, that a planeswalker native to this plane not even realizing they're off Kaldheim when they planeswalk is, I don't know, it's a really interesting take. Tibalt is finally unveiled as the main antagonist of the story, which we already knew, but he makes his debut pretty early on in the story. I was hoping to see him kind of gallivanting around as Volki a little bit, maybe have Kaya chasing after this god and there be a big surprising reveal of his character, but now the cat's out of the bag and the god Volki no longer serves a real purpose in the story, or at least it feels that way, you know? Still, Tibalt himself, he's got some interesting angles to him. We know he's all about chaos without meaning, and he makes that declaration here on Kaldheim. But what we don't know yet for sure is if he is the one who brought the Phyrexian Vorinclex to Kaldheim. We don't really know if this little portal-making sword can even pull off that kind of trick. All we know is that Tibalt is looking to smash the realms of Kaldheim together, causing a Doomskar and untold mayhem. And I just don't see how summoning a Phyrexian to Kaldheim really helps him achieve that. Anyway guys, those are just some of my thoughts on chapter 2. Let me know your own thoughts in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, please show your support by leaving it a like, subscribing, and ticking that notification bell so you never miss out on a new video's release. You can also support us over on Patreon for loads of other perks. Find that link in the video's description as well. As always guys, thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, see ya.